The Great Revival by Charles Haddon Spurgeon, March 28, 1858. The Lord hath made bare his holy arm in the eyes of all the nations, and all the ends of the earth shall see the salvation of our God. Isaiah 52, verse 10. When the heroes of old prepared for the fight, they put on their armor. But when God prepares for battle, he makes bare his arm. A man has to look two ways: to his own defense, as well as to the offense of his enemy. God hath but one direction in which to cast his eye, the overthrow of his foemen, and he disregards all measures of defense and scorns all armor. He makes bare his arm in the sight of all the people. When men would do their work in earnest, too, they sometimes strip themselves, like that warrior of old who, when he went to battle with the Turks, would never fight them except with the bare arm. Such things as they, said he, I need not fear. They have more reason to fear my bare arm than I their scimitar. Men feel that they are prepared for work when they have cast away their cumbrous garments. And so the prophet represents the Lord as laying aside for a while the garments of his dignity and making bare his arm, that he may do his work in earnest and accomplish his purpose for the establishment of his church. Now, leaving the figure, which is a very great one, I would remind you that its meaning is fully carried out whenever God is pleased to send a great revival of religion. My heart is glad within me this day, for I am the bearer of good tidings. My soul has been made exceedingly full of happiness by the tidings of a great revival of religion throughout the United States. Some 100 years or more ago, it pleased the Lord to send one of the most marvelous religious awakenings that was ever known. The whole of the United States seemed shaken from end to end with enthusiasm for hearing the Word of God. And now, after the lapse of a century, the like has occurred again. The monetary pressure has at length behind it the wreck of many mighty fortunes. Many men who were once princes have now become beggars. And in America, more than in England, men have learned the instability of all human things. The minds of men, thus weaned from the earth by terrible and unexpected panic, seem prepared to receive tidings from a better land and to turn their exertions in a heavenly direction. You will be told by anyone who is conversant with the present state of America that wherever you go, there are the most remarkable signs that religion is progressing with majestic strides. The Great Revival, as it is now called, has become the common market talk of merchants. It is the theme of every newspaper. Even the secular press remark it, for it has become so astonishing that all ranks and classes of men seem to have been affected by it. Apparently, without any cause whatever, fear has taken hold of the hearts of men. A thrill seems to be shot through every breast at once, and it is affirmed by men of good repute that there are, at this time, towns in New England where you could not, even if you searched, find one solitary, unconverted person. So marvelous, I had almost said so miraculous, has been the sudden and instantaneous spread of religion throughout the great empire, that it is scarcely possible for us to believe the half of it, even though it should be told us. Now, as you are aware, I have at all times been peculiarly jealous and suspicious of revivals. Whenever I see a man who is called a revivalist, I always set him down for a cipher. I would scorn the taking of such a title as that to myself. If God pleases to make use of a man for the promoting of a revival, well and good. But for any man to assume the title and office of a revivalist and go about the country, believing that wherever he goes, he is the vessel of mercy appointed to convey a revival of religion, is, I think, an assumption far too arrogant for any man who has the slightest degree of modesty. And again, there are a large number of revivals which occur every now and then in our towns and sometimes in our city, which I believe to be spurious and worthless. I have heard of the people crowding in the morning, the afternoon, and the evening to hear some noted revivalist, and under his preaching some have screamed, have shrieked, have fallen down on the floor, have rolled themselves in convulsions, and afterwards, when he has set a form for penitence, employing 1 or 2 decoy ducks to run out from the rest and make a confession of sin, hundreds have come forward, impressed by that one sermon, and declared that they were there and then turned from the error of their ways. And it was only last week I saw a record of a certain place in our own country giving an account that on such a day, under the preaching of the Reverend Mr. So-and-so, 17 persons were thoroughly sanctified, 28 were convinced of sin, and 29 received the blessing of justification. Then comes the next day, so many more. The following day, so many more. And afterwards, they are all cast up together, making a grand total of some hundreds who have been blessed during 3 services under the ministry of Mr. So-and-so. All that I call farce. There may be something very good in it, but the outside looks to me to be so rotten that I should scarcely trust myself to think that the good within comes to any very great amount. When people go to work to calculate so exactly by arithmetic, it always strikes me they have mistaken what they are at. We may easily say that so many were added to the church on a certain occasion, but to take a separate census of the convinced, the justified, and the sanctified is absurd. You will, therefore, be surprised at finding me speaking of revival, but you will perhaps not be quite so surprised when I endeavor to explain what I mean by an earnest and intense desire, which I feel in my heart, that God would be pleased to send throughout this country a revival like that which has just commenced in America, and which, we trust, will long continue there. I should endeavor to mark, in the first place, the cause of every revival of true religion. Secondly, the consequences of such revival. Then, thirdly, I shall give a caution or two that we make not mistakes in this matter, and conceive that to be God's work, which is only man's. And then I shall conclude by making an exhortation to all my brethren in the faith of Christ to labor and pray for a revival of religion in the midst of our churches,